There we are, for the cough. Good morning, everybody. So this is the start of Digimark on day 2, and I think this is a really good starting topic. We're going to cover off trends that matter this morning. So this is kind of the stuff that, why am I getting feedback? That everybody wants to know about, right? So all of the top trends for 2019, and what we're going to see more of coming into 2020. So note-taking time. So this is me. Right, so today on the panel, we have our lovely panelists. So this is Elvin Hussey and Lucy Hall. So, first of all, a little bit about myself. I'm a director of marketing at Space Between. If you want to learn more about what I do, come and talk to me out at the Space Between stand afterwards. But I've spent about 15 years in digital, and obviously over that time, the landscape has changed dramatically from really, really simple real estate marketing ads online to all of the complexities that we're seeing now and that we're going to be talking about. I've worked with big companies, small companies, all the way up to sort of the Fortune 500s. In my spare time and outside of my normal working week, I'm also a LinkedIn Ladies host, so I do that in the area of Kent where I live, and that's all about putting faces behind the profiles to meeting people in events like this. So what I like to focus on is profile, branding, and PR as part of my digital marketing slant. So that's something that I'm going to sort of touch on the topics that we cover as well. And something about me, I'm in a new competition this year. It's called Ms. Great Britain. It's for us old ladies. And it's they're seeking a role model for a woman in business. So I'm part of this kind of competition where we do all sorts of things to do with social and community projects, advocating women in business, that kind of thing. So that's my little hashtag. All right, a little bit about Elvin. I don't know if you want to talk them through it yourselves.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I currently am commercial director at Beano Studios. I've actually worked in youth media startups for nearly a decade. And I've kind of really focused more on kind of helping brands understand different audiences and creating content that genuinely entertains and inspires them. So at Beano Studios, most of you, hopefully in the room, will remember the Beano comic, which has been around for 81 years. Last week just celebrated its 4,000th issue, which is incredible. But Beano Studios is kind of the offshoot of that. It's very much a rebellious content studio that's really powered by family insights. It's really understanding the new generation of family and kids. So I'm working with different brands and agencies to think more kid, as we say. And then before that, I was working at an agency called Hook Labs, helping companies like giffgaff and Lionsgate to understand how they can take advantage of social platforms. So it's been quite an interesting journey for myself, yeah.
Hi, I'm Lucy Hall, and I'm a co-founder and director at a B2B marketing agency called Aviso Media. But what we also do is we run events for marketing directors and social media marketers called Social Day, and we also have we have a movement called Digital Women, which helps to educate women through digital, and through that I become Technology Role Model of the Year. And so lots of different things, anyway.
Lucy is very humble. So this year she was actually named as Technology Woman of the Year, which is insane. And all of the other categories were like these massive, massive consultancies for advocating women in business, you know, like the Deloitte, the sort of Accentures, and then like Lucy. So here we are. This is her. So let's get stuck into the trends, and feel free to shout out if you have any questions. I think there'll be questions at the end if there's anything that we haven't covered, but these are going to be the big topics of the day. So let's get started. So we are going to touch on data privacy, the topic that we're all super excited about, but it's kind of a necessary evil. Omnichannel, personalization, video, voice, AI, and programmatic. So that's what we're going to cover. And there's some a bit of overlap with some of these topics. So yeah, let's get started. So data privacy. Right, the obvious one, GDPR. So how it's all affected us, what we've learnt, how we can make things better, the things that we've learnt off the likes of Cambridge Analytica. So I want to know from Alvin and Lucy how it's kind of affected you guys, the sort of difficulties and the challenges that you've had to overcome with the likes of GDPR and all of the changes we've seen off clampdowns of all of the sort of Facebook data breaches and Cambridge Analytica type scandals. So what sort of challenges have you faced, and what's the future looking like?
Oh, go for it.
You can go first.
Well,
it's fine.
Oh, thank you. It's an interesting one. At Beano, we weren't too affected by GDPR. So I don't know if any of you are aware in the room, but there's a US law called COPPA, which is Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And there's a lot of regulations and things you need to do to get that accreditation, so to speak, where you can't record or track data from kids and that sort of thing. So at Beano, with our platform, Beano.com, which is our kind of main centerpiece of our digital network, our focus has always been to be that kid-safe, parent-trusted space. And we've always been aware that with kids, you have to obviously be very careful about privacy. It's really important. So obviously yesterday, I think it was yesterday, YouTube just got fined. They're going to get fined at least $150 million, which is the highest it's ever been for violation of COPPA, which is quite a bit of money. And TikTok only got fined 5.7 million, which is peanuts compared. But so we, I guess, for our perspective, we haven't been too affected in that way. It just means that we have to be a bit cleverer when it comes to how do we gain those insights, because it's really, we see ourselves as being kid first in many ways. So for that, we need to understand what kids actually enjoy doing. And it's very dangerous, and I see this a lot in my industry, where people just always think back to when they were kids and go, well, when I was a kid, I did this, or I did that, or I definitely didn't play any video games when I was a kid. I didn't spend hours. Or when kids are in the presence of their parents, if they ask them, how many hours do you spend on your Switch? I don't think many kids will be that honest with their parents next to them necessarily, so they might say I only spend an hour, where it might be about 4 or 5 hours. So we have to come up with clever ways of getting kid-first insights and data while still ensuring that we are GDPR COPPA compliant. So, yeah, it hasn't been too, I guess that's a challenge, is how do we offer that really great service to advertisers, to our clients, and to kids as well, and parents, but still make sure that we are COPPA compliant and very conscious about privacy. And we're helping a lot of brands and advertisers and governments and organizations understand that a lot more now.
Well, I saw something on the news recently, actually, and I think it was here in the UK, that different political parties were actually advertising to children on social media channels.
Yeah, because...
Which is crazy.
Again, it's really interesting because kids shouldn't be on social media platforms. You should be 13. The reality is that's not the reality. The reality is, I mean, even some of the kids we speak to every single week, I know one of them has at least 3 Instagram accounts. One for himself, one is his public brand profile, one for his mate, and one for his girlfriend. And he's about 11 years old. So the reality is that there are ways that people are, and I guess that's the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal and the whole, what's that thing on Netflix called? The Great Hack?
Great Hack, yeah.
I think that's where people got really angry because, to be completely frank, I worked at a social media agency at the time, and when I first heard about the whole Cambridge Analytica thing, my initial response was, obviously, people are using our data to advertise to us. What do you think they've been doing for their life? It just seemed a bit peculiar to me. I didn't understand what's the disconnect. But then, obviously, when it got into the more political area, that's where, obviously, I think the real scandal really broke through. It's all about actually how people are using the things that we use for a personal, area. We're liking and sharing certain things, and actually using it potentially against us for political reasons. I think that's where I think the real controversy happens. So I think it's really interesting that obviously political parties wanted to engage kids in politics, but there's obviously a very dangerous and conscious line that we have to be aware of about how do you communicate with that audience in the right way.
Totally. Do you have any thoughts around GDPR? Data privacy?
GDPR, not so much. We do use external companies to help us. However, we are largely B2B focused, and so the implications are different for us. However, I mean, when the whole GDPR thing was happening and we had to change things really quickly and make a lot of amendments. I mean, it was very disruptive to the business, of course. But now everything's in place, and I think most companies will have, well, I would hope, have
it all set up and ready to go.
all in place. Yeah.
I think what we're seeing now is, because one of the other topics that we're about to cover is personalization. And I was speaking about this in the States recently, and it's obviously a different audience there, but the level of personalization in terms of marketing is so much more expected there than it is in Europe. It's catching up here, but we are much more privacy focused. In Europe, we prefer to be anonymous online and have less personalization. In the States, not so much about the privacy, more about the personalization and how I'm treated as an individual customer and feeling really special and noticed.
The same in China, I believe, as well, isn't it? I believe in China they're more than happy to have their data out there.
Yeah, well, more than that. I don't know if it's
Wow, I mean...
It is being done, yes. So yeah, we have this privacy personalization paradox where we're playing catch up a little bit with the personalization space, but we have to tread really carefully in terms of this privacy and GDPR regulation. And then I think the other thing that we need to start thinking about is ethics behind data transparency in certain industries. So this is like a really gray area. So if you think about like Fitbit, for example, right? The little, or any sort of health monitor or tracker that you wear, you expect your data to be dealt with in an anonymous way, so that literally you're assigned your metric and they can sort of track populations and things that they learn in terms of how many steps on average we take a day in the UK, how many calories we're burning, how much we're sleeping, all those kind of useful insights. But if they can actually look at that, or insurance companies, and say, we can identify this person as being an at-risk individual for a heart attack or for this or that or the other, are there implications there? Should they be required to actually not deal with you in an anonymous way at that point? Should they have to identify you and say, hey, look, we appreciate that you wanted to be dealt with privacy, but actually we've identified you as being as part of this at-risk group? So I think we're going to see these kind of things play out over the coming sort of couple of years, and all of these technologies that we're all super excited about, there's going to be implications to how they actually roll out. So the next topic that we wanted to talk about was omnichannel. So it's sort of having that conversation across all of your channels in your marketing. So the idea being that in a big business, you might have a customer have their first interaction on your live chat, or it might be via email. It might be a long-standing customer that walks into your store or walks into your office, and they should be able to pick up that exact same thread of the conversation, no matter what channel they use to reach out to you on. So the idea behind omnichannel is that customer experience is really, really fluid across all of those channels. So I've put a couple of points up here that we're going to discuss. So that's the kind of what is omnichannel. It's the kind of consistency in the user experience. So I think something that is really important is the technology that sits behind omnichannel. So we have, it's all very, very much data-driven, right? So I was talking before about live chat. So obviously, live chat is an absolute hotbed for all sorts of consumer insights. These are where people come to you when they've got all of their questions, where they've got all of their frustrations, but how are we capturing this stuff? So it's sort of the technology that sits behind what we use to even begin the omni-channel conversation. So I wanted to talk to you guys and get your thoughts about omni-channel, how you're sort of managing this in your own organizations, if you've got a specific omni-channel approach at the moment, or how you see it playing out. It's definitely a challenging one across businesses.
Well, actually, Shelly, from a customer experience side of things, I know that that's what your agency do. So I think it would be really cool to hear about some of the technology that you guys use.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can cover that. But
can we?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you're familiar with biometrics, but if you were here yesterday, one of my colleagues was actually talking about a biometric lab that we have. So this is sort of psychological testing methods for consumers. So stuff that has typically been used in research institutions, universities. So things like lie detector tests, EEG caps that measure brain activity, facial emotional analysis. So I find that really cool. Maybe I'm a bit geeky, but I get really excited about it when I talk about it. But I was with the British Heart Foundation recently in London about 2 weeks ago, and they wanted to test people that use their website. And so we got together a sample of their users. These are people that have had heart attacks before, were at risk of heart attacks, or they had family members that had had heart issues, and that used the website to go and seek information. That's what they wanted to test. And what they wanted to know was how easy these users were finding this information on their website. And so we sat them down in this lab room with one of our researchers, and they knew that they were coming in for research. It wasn't sort of, we were tricking them into anything. So all the appropriate GDPR consent. And we set them down in front of the monitor because they wanted to test the desktop version of the British Heart Foundation website. And we connected them up to their polygraph sort of test. We could do their eye tracking, so from light reflections off the retina, we can see where they're looking on screen. We get them to speak out loud as they do their tasks. Mouse tracking, obviously. We didn't have the skull cap on this particular experiment. Facial emotional analysis. And then the rest of us sit in a separate room. So we've got the person being tested in their own little room, so they're all very comfortable. They've got their monitor, they've got their researcher there who guides them through what we want them to test. And then we sit out in the other room, and there's like a little webcam, and we can see exactly what they're doing, what they're looking at. We can hear them, and we can see their facial emotional responses, and we can see all the graphs running on screen in real time. And it's really interesting, because what we saw was within the first sort of 5 participants, all the same issues coming up. They would say, hey, look, if you wanted to donate something to the British Heart Foundation, where would you click? And instead of having sort of a donate button in the corner, which to the British Heart Foundation meant you were donating money, they had like book a collection, which was like for booking a pickup of a sofa or something like that. But we saw all of these confusion points across all of these participants. So that's the kind of technology we use for omnichannel, and that's kind of an example of how we apply it for our customers. But the reporting that comes out of the back of it is so cool. It's really, really interesting, because when you rely on self-reporting, if we were to ask you what your experience was with X, Y, or Z, you went to Costa this morning, got a coffee, what was your experience? Often people, we say this over and over, often people aren't truthful, and it's not because they're trying to be rude or bad, but there's almost like a level of expectation. They're getting paid to come in and do some research. They sort of want to give you the answers that they think that they should give you. And so when you start testing physiological responses, you can't lie your way around that unless you're a psychopath or some sort of Marine or someone that's been completely trained to do so. But other than that, most people can't lie their way around physiological responses. So that is how we test omnichannel. But I know most people aren't doing that yet. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I just find it really interesting. And then how do you use that data? And then you use that data to work out where people, do you use that data across all of the platforms as well, or is it just on the website? Or
no, it can be across anything. So whether your experience, like in your companies when you go back to your office tomorrow, whether you're focused particularly on desktop, whether it's a mobile app, whether it's a mobile version of a site, as long as it's digital, these things can all be measured very easily. And it's intensive reporting. We're talking like off the back of this will give them potentially a year, 18 months worth of work to start to implement to improve things. Yeah. Awesome. It's a lot.
Wow. We don't do anything to that extent. That's really cool. We do UX testing and that sort of thing for ourselves and for our clients, because we're very conscious of the fact that people work in my office, we're all adults, some of us are parents, we're not kids. So it's really important for us to actually understand from a kid's perspective how they are consuming content, how they're actually discovering our platforms, our content. So whether they're going by Instagram and what's their experience on Instagram and in our Instagram stories, or what are they doing on our website, are they liking certain things? It's just really interesting. We see lots of interesting trends, and for example, we've worked with the FA on their young, it's called Super Kicks, an app to drive young kids into playing more football. And we did the UX test, and we found that actually, and I only knew what this was called 2 weeks ago, but the free lines that you get on most websites or apps that gives you more options. I think it's called the burger icon.
Yeah.
most kids do not instinctively click on that. It's not an instinctive thing. They need things to be done. They need things to be a bit more obvious because it's quite easy for them to go, you know what, if this is not immediately easy for me, I've got other things to do. I'm just going to go on another website. So we do lots of testing on our games. We try and find out how they come to our site. Is it because they read the comic and they think, brilliant, the messaging's on point. I'm now going to go on beer.com to play, I don't know, make your best slime game. Very popular, slime.
That sounds fantastic.
Kids love slime. And llamas, by the way. If anyone's got kids, llamas, massive. Unicorns, not so much anymore. It's all about llamas. So a little bit off the press for you. But no, we're very conscious of how you need to test it. I mean, it's interesting. I actually had to Google omnichannel. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I personally wasn't even aware of what it meant. But I think we take for granted, and I think the next generation are going to take for granted the idea you should have that similar experience. Even if you go on like iPlayer or Amazon, you start your purchase on your phone, you might want to finish it on your laptop, you are watching something on Netflix and you want to carry watching on your TV. All these things we take for granted now, and there's so much technology involved and obviously data involved to ensure that consistent behavior. So I think as time goes on, that expectation is just going to massively increase. I think you're going to see generations where the idea of, go into a shop and not being able to replicate certain experiences, I think it's just going to be really off-putting in many ways. I think it's becoming more and more, even from the tone of voice you get from an email from, say, someone you signed up for, you want it to be consistent with the retail experience. I think that'll be really interesting. But then you could argue you need to customize to each channel, so see what happens, right? But
yeah, it definitely plays in with personalization. Like I got a letter from the bank a few weeks ago. I was away on holiday, got a letter from the bank, came home, the letter had come through the post, and it had given me a certain period of time to action this request, which of course I missed because I was away. And so I called up, fixed it all over the phone, took me ages because of course I had to wait for a long time to get through, and then they accidentally hung up, so I had to do it all over again. Anyway, finally got through, got everything sorted, and I just got a letter the other day saying, actually, it hasn't been actioned because you didn't write back. And I'm like, well, but I sorted this over the phone, or at least I thought. So that, in essence, is the idea behind omnichannel. Whether you're talking to them on the phone, or whether it's on a piece of direct mail, or whether it's an email, whatever it is, you've got your profile in their CRM, and that whole conversation has been recorded. So whoever you're talking to, the next person picks it up, and you're at the right point of the conversation. You're not starting from scratch every single time. So it's thinking about, in your business, have you got those in place? What's an easy place to start if you haven't, and how can you start transitioning that data instead of segmenting it across a business, like this is our email list and this is that, starting to get the flow across all of those areas.
So
that's the idea.
To be honest, I would never call up customer services. I mean, I think at one of your social day events I spoke at, you had Will, I can never pronounce his last name right, Bonadidio, and he's head of B Social, but it's one of his main clients, McDonald's, and he said he'd found some research that more people would rather clean the toilet than call up a customer service line.
Well, the worst part is that I have really bad reception in my house, so I have to stand in the backyard and shout my passwords, and they're like, sorry, can't hear you. So I'm like shouting my passwords in the backyard, going, look, I can't keep doing this. I feel like everybody around knows how to log into my internet banking at this point, or my phone banking.
Have you seen the... We just recorded a podcast yesterday, and we were talking about the customer service troll, or whatever he's called. I don't know if you've heard of him. So basically, on brand pages, has anybody seen this or heard of this yet? On brand pages, when people complain, what he's been doing is he's been changing his profile. He calls himself customer services, right, on Facebook. So he's got a Facebook profile. He calls himself customer services, right? Every time somebody complains on a brand page, he'll change his logo to their logo. And where people are so slow to reply, where brands are being so slow to reply to people on social media, he's actually pretending to be them in customer services and having full conversations, taking it to direct message with them, and really doing some damage. And there's 4 or 5 answers to questions sometimes on the Facebook page before anybody's actually got involved and removed the comments. And it's really funny, but it's really damaging. I think it's called the Customer Services Troll, and there's been some really big brands involved. So I'd definitely have a look at that. And it's happening, and just to be aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. I've put a couple of examples up here just to give you guys an idea of companies that are doing omnichannel quite well, if you want an example. So there's a company in the UK called Beerhawk, actually, and how they started was like a marketplace for what's it called, specific beers,
Like craft beers.
craft beers. So people that are really into their craft beers. But what they've done is completely grow and massively expand to anybody that's interested in beer whatsoever. And also the sort of gimmicky gifts, right? So you get to Christmas and they're like, oh, what do I get Dan? I get them a little, something or other, a brewing kit. So they've opened up to all of this now. But they've done really, really well. But what they've started doing is actually opening pubs. And what they've done is sort of similar to a lot of online retailers that do wine deliveries to your house, right? And they do flavor profiling. So they do that for your beer. So you might not like, you might be new to the craft beer world, but they can direct you to what you might like to try based on your flavor profile. But what they're doing is carrying that across into their pubs as well. Mm-hmm. So when you walk into the store, you can have that same flavor profile or select the same flavor profile based off of what you've done online. So I think that's really cool.
Be careful, if Cambridge Analytica had access to that, they'll be able to work out what beer...
We'd all be drunk all the time.
Yeah, what beer you should have if you're going to vote Brexit or something, which is horrendous.
And Walgreens, so an American example, but Walgreens, the pharmacy there, which is like the Boots in the States. So they were starting to get seriously impacted by Amazon. Amazon started to step into the pharmaceutical space, and Walgreens, who were still massive in the States, were looking, like, we need to change something here or we're going to be extinct in a few years. So what they've done is started up the Walgreens app, and it's focusing on the digital health of their customer, which is a nice little play on words. But basically, it's supporting all of their customers, whether if it's a little old lady that still wants to go into a local shop and pick it up in person in terms of her repeat prescription, she can. If you want to do it on an app, you can. But the whole point is that when you start a conversation, regardless of what channel you start that conversation on, that same thread should be able to be picked up wherever you connect with them.
And it's a cool feature, isn't it, on the app where you can scan, because all the medication has a barcode, and they can scan the barcode, and then they can set up different prescriptions. So if they physically aren't able to make it to a Walgreens store, they can do that, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, they've invested a lot, so that's them sort of hitting back at Amazon. All right, personalization. So this kind of touches on a lot of the topics that we're talking about. But like I said, personalization versus privacy, very different depending on where you are. So you have to think about, okay, we're based in the UK, so I'm talking about the UK example, but you need to think about where you're trading. If you are purely Europe, if you're interacting with different markets, then you need to consider this and how you segment those customers and how you deal with them. So if you're dealing with people in the States, do you need a higher level of personalization for that group? Versus here, do you need to tread a little bit more carefully? Do they prefer to be treated a bit more anonymously? We need to also think about accessibility considerations. So how do we personalize for people that in an ever-increasing world where I think one of the main benefits of technology is you're opening up to people that may not be able to access the physical world in other ways, right? So people that are blind that can do things by voice online. People that are colorblind, if they visit your website, can they see what's going on? And there are all these really cool tools out there now to help you with accessibility. I was at a talk in London a few weeks ago, and it was with a lady from Adobe, and she was showing us they've got this new tool now where it's like a color blindness filter. So I always thought color blindness was just like one thing, but there's all these different types of color blindness. And what you can do is click through all these filters and test your campaigns to make sure that when they go out, people can actually see your call to action buttons. They can see the hello, Shelly, welcome, blah, 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 blah part. Because some people physically can't see what you're sending them just because they have this incompatibility with speaking, with color tones. So all these little things to think about. So you think of this population as being sort of a really, really tiny, minute percentage, but it's not. If we're talking about all of the different things that encompass particularly visual impairments online, you're talking about, okay, well, why don't we just not market to people with brown eyes? We're talking sort of up to 20% of the population. So with your marketing campaigns, this is a really important thing to be thinking about. We can't just keep doing what we've always done and sort of click and repeat. We need to start thinking about how we foolproof this for accessibility and populations that can't interact with our content in the same way. So first name basis, that goes without saying now. That's not even, we shouldn't even really be talking about that. Of course you expect, if you're getting an email or a piece of content, to be, hi Shelly, blah, blah, blah. Of course, it shouldn't be hi X. I mean, the number that I still get where it's like hi, and there's still the bit of code and it hasn't picked up the name, and you just think, oh my God, is this still happening in this day and age? It's just bizarre. So what we need to think about is tailoring that content to the next level. That's where you're going to start getting some real traction. So we know that the stats for tailoring content, if we just take email as that example, so if you are, let's say, a fashion retailer, ASOS, I bought this top, a couple of weeks ago, and they've sent me an email to say, hey Shelly, look, we can see that you've bought this. We've got a couple of other things that have come out recently that match. Based on your previous purchases, we can see that you might like this, this, and this. Here's a little voucher for the first 24 hours that they go on sale with your coupon code if you're interested. Something like that, where it's a much more tailored experience, and particularly based on previous buying behavior, has at least 3 times the click-through. Do we have anything to add here in terms of how you personalize?
I was going to say, I'm interested how it works for you in the B2B space, like how personalization and what sort of things you're doing at the moment.
In segmenting your events and people that attend?
So a lot of the audiences we work with are very, very niche, and we find that we have to target people very specifically anyway, and personalisation is really, really important in B2B anyway. But when it comes to ads and things like that, there's so many opportunities for creating really personalised marketing messages to specific audience and individuals as well. I think from a non-B2B perspective, I think the general public still find personalisation a little bit creepy, and they don't really understand it, and they don't understand, why. How is this brand talking to me and calling me? How do they know my name? Yeah. How do they know my name? Like, how do they know I was looking at this website? And how do they know that I like this? And they don't understand it, and they don't understand that it's because they've given their data, or they've clicked on something, or they've given their name to someone else. So I think that's going to be, especially in the UK. I think people do expect it more in the US, but in the UK, people are still a little bit more protective over their data and a little bit more afraid. But from a B2B perspective, again, I think it's expected, but in terms of the technologies that we use CRM system. So we use HubSpot, which is really good for making sure that we're able to pull all of our data in and see the different touch points that they're using across either social media or through email marketing or ads and that kind of thing, which makes the delivery of our content quite seamless, but I mean, there's always things that we can fix all the time. But yeah, I think having the right technology in place is really, really important for personalization. I don't know, what do you guys do?
I mean, my personal feeling about personalization is have you ever heard of the term the uncanny valley? It's when you see, normally in films or CGI or even robotics, if you see something that almost looks too human, you start to feel a little bit, I'm going somewhere with this, by the way, it's a bit of a long metaphor, but you kind of feel a bit uncomfortable. And I kind of wonder if there's
it's like the new Lion King. Sorry.
Oh yeah, the Lion.
Why did they remake that? Anyway, we'll get back to it.
And sorry, going massively off topic, but they sang the song Can You Feel the Love Tonight? No spoiler, everyone. But they're singing it during the day. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, surely Elton should have had a word. So I think, but there's a particular point where the line is crossed, what I mean by that, and I feel that with personalization and privacy, there's a line where it goes from, oh, that's really cool, they know that I might be interested in this. Like you said, you got an offer, brilliant. And then there's the other one where you're like, hang on a second, I've just seen an ad for my news feed that, hang on, how do they know I was just searching for this? Or how do I remember for the interview for Beano actually, for Beano Studios, I was looking at kind of energy supplies and how we can engage kids in kind of energy, and I only looked at it on my laptop, and then I got an Instagram ad for a Danish energy supplier who's created bedtime stories so that parents can tell their kids about the world and what's happening. Very useful. It might have got me the job. By the time I thought, oh, this is a bit weird. This is a bit uncomfortable. So I think there needs to be a value exchange, and I think that's what especially in the UK, especially with things like Cambridge Analytica, I think people just want to make clear what that value exchange is. I think people are actually probably more comfortable sharing their data if they get a really great personalized, but there needs to be that really clear value exchange. And I think it actually needs to be somewhat accurate. I mean, has anyone done the Instagram thing where you see what Instagram thinks about you and the ads? Has anyone done that yet?
And Google have it as well, don't they?
Allegedly, I'm into tattoos. As you can see, I have 0 tattoos. I'm probably never going to get a tattoo. Or I'm into things like nail art. Again, don't have any. So I have no idea why it's built up that profile in me. So I think that's, however, we see that kids love to personalize things. So I think it's more about enabling behaviors, enabling people to personalize things. You can see that from, all the trainer brands, Nike, Vans, allow you the opportunity to personalize trainers, or even with Beano, we have an option where you can personalize. It's a great Christmas present for anyone, by the way. But we sell the annuals, if you remember them every year. But you can personalize them, so you can pick any year you want, and you can personalize it with a name or a message to a family member or friend. So pretty good for Christmas or birthdays, stuff like that. But that's really, I think that's a really nice thing of personalization. I just think you have to be very careful on the opposite side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's still very much a grey area where it's being felt out, and I think that will be the case for the next year as and these cases pop up where people are getting fined and everybody figures out what that line is, and then I think there's going to be this almost too much personalisation as well, where people want to pull back a little bit. So
yeah, I think if you come in too early as well and you start being too friendly with people, then that's really creepy. That's the thing that creeps people out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you build the relationship first, then it gets easier because people are ready to.
You've built some rapport.
Yeah, you've built some rapport and a relationship up. Not just like, hey Shelly, how are you?
I saw you on holiday last week.
Yeah.
You love the Eiffel Tower. Great.
We know how old you are.
Yeah.
We know when you're. Yeah, because you can get the data. We know when people's birthdays are.
Yeah.
We know where they live. We know where they're going. On Google knows everything. If you have Google enabled on your phone, it knows. The internet knows like where we are. And you can, like Alvin was saying, you can download your profile as well on Google, and it gives you an idea of your what age it thinks you are. Have you ever done this before? What you're into, what you're interested in.
I don't want to do that.
Like what kind of animals you like, loads of things.
Oh,
and you can actually download it, and you can actually delete it as well if you want to. So
Start again.
But I think with
Come and find Lucy at the end if you're interested in finding what your profile is, because I want to know.
Yeah.
But if for anything though, surely I can't remember who told me this or I read it somewhere, but there's always that mantra, isn't it? If you are getting something for free, then you are the one you're the product. Your data, you are the product. So I think it's just important to remember that. That's what I always think anyway.
So you're exchanging your data for the experience.
Yeah.
And that isn't it, I guess.
Totally. Video. Who's using video, by the way? Can I just hands? And what sort of, if you're happy shouting out, how often are you using video? Some examples. Is it sort of every day? Cool. Are you making it yourself? Oh wow, well done. Anybody else? Is it sort of daily, weekly, daily? Well, okay, cool. Awesome. So, I think Lucy, you're definitely the person to kick this off.
Well,
Lucy
I think Alvin as well.
Or both, yeah.
So video is probably one of the core parts of our marketing strategy, like our marketing throughout everything that we do. We find that not only do the social media platforms give precedence over video to just like text or image-based content, it's more engaging. You can be more creative with video. There's so many different ways you can use video in ads. There's obviously lots of different formats when you're looking at stories and in the feed video and everything else. People just tend to engage with video more now. And I think it was a few years back when I first started out working in social, maybe about like, I don't want to show how old I am, but maybe like 9 years ago or something like that. Everyone was like, video in 2012 is going to be massive. It's going to be the next big thing. So everyone's like, let's do video. And we started seeing all of this really poor video, like this really bad quality video popping up. And then these live stream channels started coming along, and there was like really poor quality video. Everyone's like, it doesn't matter if you create video, just create it. It doesn't matter if it's poor quality. But I think we're seeing a bit of a change now in that, and people want to see high quality video. and they want to see something that's well produced and that looks good and that engages them in the same way. I don't know, how do you feel about that?
So it's funny, everyone talks about video being this new thing. I mean,
It's
people
not new.
forget it's been around for quite some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
something
yeah.
called
Long
TV
time. Yeah.
a while ago that came out. Check it out. No, do you know what? I think what's just evolved and changed and developed is how people are consuming video. And I think it's, I see this all the time when I used to work at my last company, but people, I actually disagree. I don't actually think you necessarily need the highest, glossiest, well-produced
Yeah.
video, actually. So, for example, we've just done a series of Back to School, working with an influencer who we discovered through platforms like TikTok and Instagram, etc. And it's kind of this very lo-fi comedy routine where it's all things like, I literally only found about it a few days ago, so bear with me. But it's things like, summer, come back to school is like this, or exams are like this, or whatever. And it's still that quite low, face the camera.
Yeah.
He's blatantly filmed it in his house. But we've seen the completion rates are the highest we've had them, because it tells a clear story. I think the great thing about video is the way that you can drive people to share that content and really, whether that's from an emotional point of view and it really tells that really strong narrative, or it's something that's triggering some sort of like memory or emotional response, I think can work really, really well. I'm just always very conscious of people disregarding other platforms. I think video has to be the tool if it's relevant. There's no point just doing a video for the sake of it. Like the amount of time, and even on LinkedIn, I'm getting bored of people with their face in front of the camera, like, hey guys, let's talk about this.
That's what I mean. Do you think it's different for B2B than it is for consumer? Because I know that as a consumer, it is more fun to consume videos on TikTok and videos on on stories and IGTV and that kind of thing. When you're on LinkedIn, people have stopped producing these videos where they're like, hey guys, I'm going to tell you this latest social media tip and that kind of thing, and it's all wobbly and the lighting's bad and that kind of thing. It just doesn't work for B2B anymore.
Yeah.
I think we also, I guess with any platform, doesn't matter if it's LinkedIn or Twitter, you just got to remember who the person is and what they're doing at the time. If you are putting something on at 10 a.m. British time, they're probably going to be at work.
Yeah.
They might watch it on the toilet. Will they have their headphones with them? Probably not. But then on the other hand, if they're on the way home from work, what are they doing? I think it's really important to think about what your audience are doing, and are you actually, is video the right thing? So with kids, we know that certain times video, they love certain video. They absolutely love it. They want to see something really funny or give some sort of value. So, we're doing a campaign at the moment with Super Mario Maker 2, and it's all about hacks. So we've done a video that obviously gives some sort of value.
Yeah.
But at other times, video isn't relevant. They'd rather do a fun quiz, or they'd rather play a game, or whatever it may be. Although we found that, just as a heads up, never do a campaign or any content for kids on Sunday evenings in the UK. Utterly pointless. They're busy doing they're doing last-minute homework, basically. They'll never see your stuff. So just as a heads up, never do Sunday evening. Do it in the morning, maybe on Saturday. Never do anything Sunday. There's no point putting a video out, even if it's like a kids video on YouTube or YouTube Kids, whatever. They're not going to watch it on a Sunday evening.
They've probably been put to bed because their parents are stressed.
Do you put
Probably.
subtitles in all your videos? Do you think that's really important or not?
We do. Yeah, no, we still do that because it needs to be accessible and people need to do that. And even when I was at my previous jump company, we'd always used to put, we'd put subtitles on. I think that goes without saying because, again, people won't always watch it. Unless you give them some sort of reason to watch with sound, then yeah.
Also, it helps your video become more searchable, right? Captions. All right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to skip through. So I've put some notes up here. These slides will be shared at the end, but it's about personalized video. I wanted to talk about that in terms of actually when you do a one-on-one to a new client, whether that's possible in your business. Hi, welcome on board. Great to have you. Thanks for the follow. Thanks for the whatever. We're seeing more of that. We're seeing a lot more in terms of Q&A interviews being used for video, particularly on social media, something that's been scheduled and that you drive a build-up, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna keep skipping. Voice, something that we want to talk about. So currently, single search tool, right? We use it to play playlists, do shopping lists, play our music, do reminders. So it's kind of background technology to give us almost more technology-free time, in a sense. So I think what we're going to see here, and what we have to see here, I think the application for B2C when you're in your home with an Alexa is fantastic. I think the limitations are in a business sense, right? Everyone's going, oh, voice search, amazing, it's going to change everything. But I think until it's been completely refined for a B2B scenario as well, in terms of it's not a single search tool anymore, but actually it's a multimodal assistant, then we're going to start to see things really take off. So, scheduling meetings, taking the minutes for the meetings and sending them out to people, that's where it's really going to change. And in the meantime, things like accuracy, when you do voice typos and it's really annoying because you've got to kind of wait for it to the error message and then start again. All of this stuff we need to kind of almost deal with in the meantime till it gets to that point of accuracy where we have this super flash tool that's, better than what it currently is. But we're in this transitionary period.
I mean, they've only been around for such a short period of time. So I think it's interesting to see how people's consumer behavior changes. And I think it's really interesting that this year the name Alexa has dropped by more than a half of kids' names now. Because it could be quite an awkward situation at home, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I can't believe, I suppose they were Alexas to begin with. So I'm going to scoot through. If you have any specific questions, just shout, just because, like I said, running out of time. So AI. Google, absolutely superior AI capabilities over anything else at the moment. So we're already seeing it, all the things that we're using in day-to-day. You see a lot in Gmail, you see a lot with predictive search, with the auto-response emails. Chatbots, what I was saying before. So a lot of people are implementing chatbots now. It's kind of the new thing. We're getting all super excited to be rolling them out. But are we using them to their max potential? So they're sitting there, but there's all this data that isn't being used typically. So if you're using them, that's the next step. Start thinking about how you're actually taking the data out of it. You're getting all the frustrations, all of the questions, all of the insights, and processing it in some way that's useful. Otherwise, what's it doing sitting there? So don't get caught up in the excitement of it and not using or not harnessing it properly. Facebook proactive detection. So we've been talking a little bit and touched on this a little bit so far, but these social media platforms, they're starting to get a lot of pressure now about having more of a social conscience. So Facebook proactive detection helps them pick up on personalities that they think that are at risk, in particular suicide risk, and they start presenting them with mental health support ads and content. And so that's kind of one of those things that I was talking about this privacy versus personalization sort of line. What are your thoughts on AI and
well, with
proactive
Facebook
detection?
ads, has anybody seen the list of all of the different potential things that they pick up in photographs and videos and that kind of thing? Has anybody seen them so that the AI can disapprove them immediately? There's a massive list. It's well worth looking at. I'm going to find it for you. It's well worth looking at because it just means that your ads will get approved quicker if your photos and the copy and that kind of thing don't mention certain things. There's a massive list.
Okay, you look for the list.
I'm going to look for the list and tell you some of the things on it if we've
I
got
just
time.
think, because I went to an event about AI a few weeks ago, and it was about the code of creativity and how they're using AI to actually become creative, which is quite scary for anyone who works in creative industries and wants to have a job. But the idea, they got an AI to learn how to paint like Monet, and you had to guess which one was the AI and which one was the real one, and I got it wrong most times. But what was interesting was the response in the audience was like, pretty much every question was like, is this the beginning of Skynet? It was all fear and that sort of thing, whereas I think what's going to start happening is actually AI is already doing stuff right now for all of us. I mean, even things like, there's a great website called Reclaim. If anyone uses it, if they travel in London, it automatically works out if your tube's delayed and automatically gets a refund for you, rather than you have to fill in a form. So it's really simple, benefits your life, everyone wins. So there's a thing in America that MIT did I can't remember the exact word because I literally Googled it this morning, but they got 4-year-olds to try and teach AI how to do different things, and one of them was to teach them how to put foods into healthy or unhealthy, and one of them was to teach an AI how to play rock, paper, scissors, 4 years old. Wow. And when they asked the kids, does that make, if the AI could beat you, which eventually it could, does that mean AI is smarter than you? And the kid went, no, it wins, but I'm smarter than it because I built it. Oh. So we're seeing the audience, they love coding. I think over a third of kids are coding. They love coding right now. So I think you're going to start seeing AI become a big thing. Yeah. But not scary big. Yeah. Nice thing.
Yeah. Well,
supportive tech.
didn't Facebook create some AI bots?
Well, that's
Started-
Twitter, and it went super racist. So you're talking about that one?
No.
Oh.
On Facebook, the team there actually created some bots that were talking to talk to each other. And what happened is, because they were AI bots, so they created the code, they were talking to each other in a language that everybody could understand, but then they started developing their own language and talking to each other. Did anyone hear about this?
Oh my gosh.
They developed their own language and they started talking to each other, so they had to shut it down. Well, they say they've shut it down. I mean, I wouldn't. I'd like to see what happened.
I mean, I'm
But
a twin, so
it could be
twins did it all the
dangerous.
time. I'm an identical twin, and we twins do actually do their own languages, which is, yeah, so I can see how that happened with Facebook twins,
Twin AIs.
twin AIs.
Yeah.
We're out of time. We were going to cover a couple of other topics. Programmatic ads, actually, I think that was the last one. Was that the last one? Yeah, okay, I'll quickly cover it. So programmatic,
This is
so
my
it's
next.
basically, sorry? Oh, I thought someone told me to be quiet. So
complete.
it's basically your automatic advertising. So is anyone using programmatic at the moment? Yep, a few people. So basically, programmatic, we're going to see it a whole lot more. In fact, most people are using it. I think the fear here is that people that have worked in pay-per-click, for example, they don't want to sort of relinquish the control. But I think if you, certainly machines can do things like algorithms a whole lot better than what people can on average. So we have to leverage these. Things like dynamic search ads on Facebook, on Google, are seeing amazing results. So like I said, I'm sort of running out of time on this. We have to wrap up. But if you have questions, come and grab me and we can talk about it if that's of interest or relevance to you. We have the little, actually we don't have the little orange box. Where is that floating around? But does anybody have any questions, anything that we might have missed, anything that is sort of interest or relevance to you that you want to cover, anything that, yep.
You mentioned horizontal, vertical, you didn't cover. Can you cover that?
Video, I think, yeah. Lucy, what do you, you're the sort of, you do loads on sort of like live videos and things. IGTV, this is probably the wrong thing to say, but for me, I just personally, I hate vertical video. I'm not there yet. And sort of when IGTV launched, I think they were expecting way more uptake than what they saw, because they were like, well, it's great, it's everybody's phones. But I think people were just so used to holding it that way that it didn't make that much impact or difference. But that's my opinion. So what are you finding? Because you do loads of different video.
Well, it must not have made that much impact, because just recently they changed it so you can upload horizontal videos now. So everybody thought maybe because people are using stories and they're creating vertical video and that kind of thing, that maybe one day we might even have like TVs that we can change around like this that we can watch on
Samsung
the
bought
wall.
that out. There is a TV.
Oh, there is actually?
That flips. Yeah.
So you can watch it
It
from-
goes. Hang on. It goes vertical. Yeah.
The thing is, it's just going to become more expensive if you then have to create video horizontally and vertically as well. And so is that scalable? Is it scalable? And is vertical content left better for people creating it in the moment on their phone? The video that you were talking about, like, that the creators
Casual
are creating,
content.
casual content, that kind of thing. And then horizontal video is more for highly produced stuff. I don't know. But I think it depends what platform you're using as to which, what you're...
If you're going for the raw
what's,
stuff, go with the, play with vertical video.
Yeah.
If you're going for the polished stuff, stick to horizontal. There's no point paying to have it made vertical and produced in
Although
video.
if you're creating it specifically for Instagram stories, that's something, an ad that's highly produced, you can still, do it that way as well. And I'm sure that there is some AI technology out there, I don't know what it is, that you can where you can actually create a video in one format and then it will automatically, change it for you to different sizes. But I just don't know what that tool is off the top of my head.
Tools like that do exist. They have the limitations, obviously, as well as to how much what they can.
Yeah.
I just
What
don't
they
really
can do.
buy into long-form vertical content.
Yeah.
I just can't see someone watching it for that long.
No.
I just think, like you said, it's more the quick, authentic, just quick, raw
The raw
footage.
stuff.
You literally think, oh, sweet, it lasts 10, 15, 20 seconds, whatever. Whereas most of the platforms are prioritizing long form now, which makes you wonder if horizontal is still going to be the benchmark or the,
Well, it's like if you're watching Netflix on your phone, you can't watch it like that.
That'd be
for a
weird,
long
wouldn't it?
time, do you? For a long time, you want to put your phone, you want to keep it still, and you can watch it for a long time, maybe like hours if you like the series on Netflix, like I do. But you're not going to sit there for hours watching it like that. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, yeah.
But who knows?
We're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I think we will have to.
Oh, get us off stage.
No, it's happy for it to overrun. That's lots of great insights. Are you guys around all day?
For a few hours, so come and grab. But yeah.
Perfect. Yeah,
Come
in
and
the
grab us at lunch if you want.
we've got a break in a bit, so I'd recommend grab the guys for some more questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.